I'm a data analyst at Autodesk, teaching fellow at Delta Analytics, volunteer teaching fellow, that is. You can find me at rollingaverage.dev. There, at that location, I'll also send the slide deck later, a little bit about, and then here's like a couple of things you can learn about me as well. Just a couple of notes. I'm not a DBT core contributor, just rather a user, hopefully like you would be. None of the information or examples today is a reflection of or my own work at Autodesk. And then also echoing Daniel's part is just, I'm hoping your families are well and continue to be safe during these times, especially particularly in recent news. And then also maybe, just support our social movement in the upcoming future as well. That'd be awesome. So let's get started with the talk. So we'll be talking about today, DBT. What is DBT in regards to technology? Because DBT is an acronym for something else in a different industry. DBT, Data Build Tool, is an open source package developed by Fishtown Analytics, located in the East Coast, that applies the principles of software engineering to analytics, and also hence the recent terminology, if you're looking for a job, like terminology, analytics engineering. Mainly, DBT helps in creating the net positive analytics engineering in the transformation step of ELT. An abbreviation expanded is extract, load, and transform, for the sake of analytics. And here is a quick visualization from the DBT website of where DBT or transformations would be utilized. So it'd be in this middle section right there. But you may be thinking, what's in it for me, right? Let's just check out just a quick scenario. So let's just say we have this fake data or a returned JSON object from an API from a website called pizzaiscoolblog.com, just with some random information. In the more traditional ETL approach from early 2010s, which is extract, transform, and load, we'd maybe create a Python script or just like a script in general, get the data from the API, do a little bit cleaning, removing corner cases, etc. as a transformation, then loading it into the data warehouse, right? But then what could be some disadvantages in this case? One case is, do we actually have the raw data for analytics purposes? So using this templating right here, which I'll mention later on, for the sake of DBT and how Jinja interacts with, but just querying this table, this raw table, let's just call logins from a schema API pizza, if you're familiar with databases, is that data actually raw, with the assumption that we did some transformations early on in that Python script under the ETL model. And then case number 2 is, okay, what happens if we did transformations before loading the data into our data warehouse, data lake, wherever you be it? And particularly, we made a modification to a column called IP address before loading in the data, and then we're doing again thereafter. So we're doing transformations on transformations, which is a bit confusing when you're trying to diagnose particular data points. So it's another case that you may be concerned about on the ETL process, that old standard. And then also, how are these queries stored? Are they stored locally on your machine? Well, honestly, we've all done that. Maybe we continue to do that, and it's okay. Or maybe we're storing our queries or these code commands out in some application somewhere as well, where maybe this information or query is important business logic. So again, come back to the question, again, what's in it for me? Well, you want to keep things dry, unified logic, and quality and assurance, maybe some insurance too. I'll explain this now with DBT in mind. So that dry acronym, don't repeat yourself. So we have these queries everywhere as an analyst, whether it be in a local machine, like I mentioned, or a remote application, but you want to centralize those particular queries. And so DBT allows for, at the core functionality, just at least version controlling your queries. So that way you can stack these queries all together or on top of each other as well. And just use a little summary of okay, we have SQL queries and our code editor, great. But with DBT, allows this version controlling logic, and then also things on top of that by allowing the addition of Jinja templates for convenience of creating your SQL queries as well. Here's just a quick example of DBT's proprietary product called DBT Cloud, which you can create these queries and store them or work with them in DBT Cloud. But then again, remember, DBT is an open source package through Python. And yeah, just using these Jinja templates, kind of fuzzily kind of see right here, you can use that and make your queries a little bit more sophisticated, just like as a download items. And then also you can create macros and to work with your standard queries. So say, for example, you're creating like the calculation between distance between something, or using the haversine distance calculation, and you're always reusing that as like, say, like as a GIS analyst, and you just want to like macrotize that, or just like use that conventionally as a macro. You can do that with DBT as well, using leveraging that power Jinja templating. And maybe you want to unify your logic, right? You want to know as a business leader, analytics leader, or just an analyst, the source of truth of maybe metrics, definitions for modeling your data. And you want these transformations or even feature engineering created in like a MART layer. You can store that all together to be that your source of truth. And DBT allows you to implicitly do that, but then moreover, explicitly empower you to, when you have that all stored together, all those queries stored together, to then leverage that to become more functional than just standalone queries. For example, here, DBT has this quick command with an associated YAML file. You can just create documentation, and that will be compiled, and you can create like just this HTML file, which I have an example on my own website of how to utilize the standard queries with the YAML file to instantly get ROI for yourself. And just a quick quote right here is, and an emphasis is like, you allow yourself documentation, and in the upcoming future, documentation is a love letter to yourself. And that's something that is very near and dear to me, but then also like allows me to reiterate and use that claim with DBT. And here's just a quick example of using like a YAML file, associated YAML file with a SQL query. And then maybe you want some quality and insurance as well. And then just to keep in mind with this little presentation coming close to an end. So maybe you want some quality and insurance too. Well, with a separate YAML file, we can create tests to enable us to make sure our data models or data sets, data tables, to making sure that there's some validation there as well. In this YAML file, you can see for a model or a table called orders, we have these columns and we can make tests on them. Maybe we want to make sure one column is unique, not null, right? We want to make sure there's only particular types of values that are associated in another column, things of that nature. Well, we can add those tests and assertions to make sure we have a more robust data pipeline, a DAG, or direct acyclic graph, or just a data pipeline, right? And there's like a lot more things we can do as well. Like there's logging, alerting, and soon to be a lot more functionality with the recent version of DBT. I think they're on 0.18 and 0.19. But with the emphasis on those particular numbers, there's a lot more room to grow, right? So just reiterating, again, there's like all other powerful DBT features as well. But I'll end this off with a cliffhanger. Just in the meantime, actually, DBT has great documentation, so you can always feel free to check that out. They have an upcoming conference in December, virtual conference, I should say, with some upcoming content coming out as well for that. So feel free to check that out. They have an awesome Slack community, just like SF Python has a great and awesome Slack community like y'all. And then also I've created my own tutorial to start on DBT yourself, or even if you just want to like check around and look at some quick examples, you can do that as well. And so as an overall statement is like, you want to be thinking about data like this, but you don't want to be thinking about data on the right side of that image. And so with that being said, thank you SF Python, especially the volunteers, sponsor as well. And yeah, just some like resources as well.